Welcome to the ABQ Accent, where catalysts, innovators, and risk takers share what their accent is on their work. Like a spoken accent, we all have an inflection or emphasis on where we put our energy. Join us to learn how these folks are putting their accents to work, building their vision of the future, and how you can get involved. Hello, everyone. I'm Mariah Harrison with the ABQ Accent Podcast. I'm here today with an old friend, Marisa Magallanez. Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, good. Me too. Our time together, I think, is going to be maybe selfishly unique for me today. And I'd love to give you a great intro, but I'd love for you to then fill in the gaps where I failed.
Sounds good.
Okay. So, Marisa, you have, for me, a unique accent, and I'll just say ahead of your bio, it could say anything right now, but the time I've spent with you is why I want to spend more time with you today. In the field of philanthropy, in the field of the giving group that I've been a part of, somewhere your voice has been in the back of my mind, guiding some of the questions that we were challenged with, and I appreciate your leadership moving forward. So,
Thank you.
Marisa Magallanez is the president and CEO of the Albuquerque Community Foundation and the New Mexico Community Trust. A mission-driven philanthropic leader with more than 20 years of experience in nonprofit management, community foundation leadership, and donor stewardship, Marisa is dedicated to strengthening community partnerships, expanding impact, and advancing equity and civic engagement across New Mexico. During her tenure with the foundation, Marisa has guided the organization through a period of strategic growth by developing innovative government and philanthropic partnerships, overseeing the development of its first strategic plan and values to reflect a modern, community-centered approach to philanthropy. Can say true. A native of southern New Mexico, Marisa believes in the power of philanthropy to bring people together and create lasting change. She holds an MBA with a focus in policy and planning from UNM. Go Lobos. And just a note quickly about ACF, the Albuquerque Community Foundation. I want people to go to abqcf.org as soon as they're done here so they can get an idea of some of the bigger things we're talking about. Established in 1981, has given over $74 million just to ABQ nonprofits.
Right.
But works with numerous other counties. And the general mission is to serve the community by mobilizing and stewarding resources to create equitable opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. I'm still getting used to the first part, president and CEO.
CEO.
That's 2.5 weeks fresh. And so it still kind of hits me in the heart and gives me butterflies in my stomach when other people say it. I'm like, is that me? It's me. She's talking about me.
Heck yeah, too. And, ACF did something incredible, I thought. They launched you in the public sort of awareness a little early before Randy was retiring to say, this is our person. This is where we're at right now. Pay attention. So what else would you like to fill in about what brought you to the work today? And I'd love for you to highlight flamenco.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. So probably like so many people, young people at the time, what did you want to do? Who knows? I wanted to work at the Gap when I was in high school because I think I liked their commercials. They still have great commercials. I did not ever work at the Gap, but I was at the University of New Mexico, and like so many people, I took a flamenco class there and just found myself in the midst of this incredible community. And I think what it answered for me was that search for creativity, connection, community. And I think this value carried through with me, like this ability to be an idealist and a romantic and create something beautiful for the community to share. And I got to really taste that at the National Institute of Flamenco. So I was dancing there. I started interning there. And then once I graduated from Anderson School of Management, I started working there, and thus began my 20-year career in the social sector. And I wouldn't trade a minute of it.
Well, and the Institute is a really powerful nonprofit in its own right.
Yeah, it's special.
Got history here in New Mexico. It leads the way in philanthropy, in flamenco.
Yes.
In the United States.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be in that environment.
I mean, I think as a younger professional, it was so creative. And what it taught me was when a group of people get together and decide that we want to do something and put this show on, I'll say like that, so much around, revolved around whatever show we were going to do next, and to conceptualize that and bring that to life and then see the joy in the audiences and experiencing that and the camaraderie that you build. I mean, to me, that was just so, it was so formative for me to think like, what can happen when people come together and believe in something and make it happen. And it's a simple premise, but something that we all can practice so much more. And then I think, the juxtaposition of the Institute working so deeply, in the grassroots community. And I remember again in those early days, my boss and dear friend Eva Encinias, who is an icon in her own right, we'd go have breakfast at Budella's Coffee House, and everybody would just like, oh, hi Eva, or oh, my mom danced at your mom's studio on Edith and Candelaria, and seeing like that legacy real time, and people who had been impacted by her mom and her and the countless people who've gone through flamenco at UNM and at the conservatory. I mean, it was just, again, it was like taught me about deep roots and like the lasting impact that we can have on our community. And then, being able to help build this incredible epicenter for flamenco here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that we're so proud of, was just really special. And yeah, a treasured part of my life.
Right. Well, I'll just say an additional note was at one point I was doing a report on some of the contracts that the city does with nonprofits, mm-hmm. and that was one of them. And I was diving in to learn more about it during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And it was immediately after you all had like the virtual experience of the performances. Mm-hmm. How can people continue to be involved in a way where they don't have to all stuff themselves into an auditorium, but experience the performances on a national and international level? You brought performers over. You did, I want to say Zoom.
Yeah, there was Zoom, and I had just left the Institute in 2019, and I remember sitting in my house in COVID, and it was the 2020 festival, and they had streaming passes, and sitting there feeling so isolated, right? We all were at home, and then feeling like this online camaraderie that June, and knowing like friends were watching, be able to chat and have this experience of community in this really weird time. But yeah, it's a special place, and it's I mean, I don't think I've missed a festival since 2005.
Right.
So I've got the festival's, I think, almost approaching 40. So I wasn't there for those early days, but I have a good track record, and I'm proud of it. Plan to keep it up.
Exactly. I think that track record is evident. I think you're, even if you might not have been there that particular year, you were part of the team that helped create something that everybody is going to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Right?
And so proud of that. A couple of years ago, the Institute, the company Hijastros, was invited to a flamenco festival in Jerez, Spain, in southern Spain.
We followed on social.
I know. And it was amazing. And it was such a full circle moment. There was a group of about 40 people that went. I was there, and I remember talking to Marisol, the executive director, Eva's daughter, and we found out the company was going to be in Spain. And I was like, I would not miss that for the world. And two incredible things, I think, sitting in the audience, across the ocean in Spain, realizing that I get to see this in my own backyard.
Yes.
And that was just an incredible moment of pride, and thinking about how many wonderful experiences the Institute has created of just like world-class art for our community, and how many lives that's inspired. And then the full circle moment of my career, like working with the Institute, seeing this company that we just love so much, Hijastros, and seeing them on this global stage, and a very small part that I, got to play for 14 years in their growth and story. So that was a very special moment in my life.
Thank you for sharing that. It was a good time to reflect on.
Yeah.
I thought about taking some classes at UNM. I just didn't ever pull it off. So now I just enjoy everybody else.
Never too late. Never too late.
Might not be. So in the transition to the Albuquerque Community Foundation, at least at the time.
Yeah.
What was it that you were sort of doing in your life, in your emotions, in your heart, that sort of transitioned you into a space of a different nonprofit that might have had a wider reach, but a different vision? Yeah,
that's a great question. I mean, I think I knew that, I wanted to grow and maybe lead an organization at some point, and wasn't sure, what the path was for me at that time. And I remember meeting with Randy. We went to lunch, and he says, what do you want to do in your career? And I said, well, I want to lead an organization. And this was in probably 2018, the end of year in 2018, maybe early part of 19. And he says, well, I don't have that job yet, but I have this other job. And, would you consider, interviewing for an advancement manager position? And I said, sure. And I remember walking into the building, our beautiful building on 7th and Tijeras. It's just got an incredible energy and history. And I just knew that I needed to be there. And I remember having this kind of overwhelming feeling walking through the hall thinking, I know I need to be here. And it really struck me and went to the interview, accepted the position as advancement manager, started March of 19. So I'm almost 7 years. And I don't think I really understood completely what an incredible institution a community foundation is and has the potential to be. It probably took me a few months in to really start to understand. But what I loved about it immediately was the scope, right? Like I always say that we have a bird's eye view, or I joke sometimes that we know a little bit about a lot because we're working across so many aspects of the social sector and get to have this really unique perspective of it.
Yeah. And it makes sense, I think, what you're saying about being in it to know it.
Yeah.
The foundation is big and broad, and it does so many things. It's got the permanent endowment. It manages giving groups, multiple giving groups, multiple events a year, scholarships, you name it.
Yeah.
And it's okay that not everybody understands all of it.
Right.
Because they find their place where I want to engage
exactly.
the foundation.
I love that. And I think you're absolutely right. You might, if you're a student seeking scholarships, the Albuquerque Community Foundation because you might apply there, or you have these entrance point. But I hope what it does is leads you to a deeper relationship with our community in whatever way that is right for you at whatever season you are in your life, because we also have the deep opportunity to work across so many generations and families, and that's a really cool experience as well.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what that looks like on the ground.
Yeah.
Your bio talks about partnerships and strategy and growth and community connections. Where does the rubber meet the road for those types of things? And what are you talking when, maybe there are some people that listening that don't fully understand the world of philanthropy, much less a specific foundation. And we're talking about inroads on ways to get connected. Well, give me an example of what it looks like to come out of a strategy meeting and implement a particular idea with community.
Great. Oh my gosh, I love this question so much. So what I would talk about there is a project that we took 2 years to conceptualize called Rooted Together. And we had a lot of community voice and deep conversations about what does it mean to be in relationship with our community. And one of the things that we heard so deeply, and it was really cross-sector, nonprofit folks, residents.
Intentional.
And very intentional. And the number one thing that came out of that was, how do we build transformational relationships with each other? And so we thought deeply about, what does that mean for us as a community foundation? And then how do you manifest that in an event? And so what was born after this long process was a new initiative for us called Rooted Together. It's a 2-year, it's in its beta year, the cycle, I should say, because it's a 2-year program where our goal is to really focus on neighborhood development and neighborhood improvement from the voices and perspective of the people in that neighborhood. And then as a foundation, try to make an impactful, meaningful, catalytic, if that's even a word, catalyzing grant. And so we're working with an organization called Street Vision, and they do really innovative housing in the International District, really nimble, very agile. And our commitment is to invest $200,000 in helping them continue to be a spark in the healing and the prosperity of the International District.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Because it is a place-based goal evolution vision.
Yeah. I love that.
And the voice of the people, who are being affected or impacted or participating are ever present.
Absolutely. And what I love about it is it kind of, one of the things that I think a community foundation does best is bring in other partners. And so, the dollars that we're raising to support this initiative are not solely coming from us. They're coming from corporate partners. They're coming from donor-advised fund holders. They're coming from the community itself and doing grassroots fundraising. And it's just a wonderful example of how when we talk about our mission, mobilize and steward resources, being very active in creating leverage and relationships and moving dollars into communities, particularly underinvested communities. And the exciting thing about this for me too is it'll move, right? And so how do we, what the International District needs and how it has its own self-determination might be very different from other parts of our community. And I love the idea that this project and initiative can move place by place, neighborhood by neighborhood. And then also reminds us that we're all one big community, very different, very unique, not a monolith, but we're all rooted together. So hence the name.
Right. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun.
I'm excited to see the growth of that too, because the more people become aware of the concept, the more they can get engaged and potentially support that in their own ways.
And I think it hits on a really important philosophy in philanthropy. And I want to just say off the bat, like, giving is important, right? Period. Whether you're giving $10, $1,000, $100,000. And I think what is very interesting about the work we get to do is see the impacts of lots of different giving. What we love to do is have collective impact. So we pool a lot of money together. And I think through Rooted Together, we get to explore a little bit. And for nonprofit listeners, I know you're hopefully going to be giving a thumbs up or like button on this one, because we love unrestricted multi-year funding. And that is so important to think about the resiliency for nonprofits and how, whether they're dealing with a pandemic or changes in federal funding or just the volatility of the world and things that we experience as New Mexicans and as Albuquerque, residents, we're better off when our nonprofits are thriving and resilient. And so we think a lot about what does that mean and how do we pull resources to help nonprofits really become thriving and resilient, because their services are so important. Well,
and all of that is an example of how the community voice is present in that strategy that you guys are talking about. I really feel like it's also a reflection of the trustees that are resilient in their own right by being a part of their community and reflecting the work that they believe needs to be done without separating themselves. They're in it.
Right.
What needs are we hearing, and how can we be a part of those solutions?
Yeah. And especially as a new leader, one of the things that I'm really grateful for is that I feel like I have a board who really embraces the let's try spirit.
Right.
And I think, sometimes you might associate a board or governance with like risk and risk mitigation and all these fancy things. And that's really important on one level. But I also think that our board really sees clearly the risk of inaction and what that costs the community. And so I feel very confident in the support I have as a new president and CEO to take those innovative steps and swings forward and say, what's the cost of not addressing this or being part of this conversation or putting resources here, because I think we all know the kind of community we'd like to build, and we might have very different ideas of that, but there's probably some big commonality of prosperity and opportunity and quality of life.
So, now I don't want to be too morbid or too negative, because I want us to stay on the possibilities and the creativity piece here. But your point about knowing that you have to ask questions that are hard sometimes about what is not being addressed, what is not happening, what happens if we don't do something. Is there something you're seeing in the environment, in society right now that you could be, or that maybe you just know that the foundation is going to be more engaged with this coming year?
I love that question. And I love it because I think it gets at the heart of what a community foundation really is. And to me, that's about bringing aspects of our community, different, whether that's geography, ideologically, issue area, together, and having those hard conversations. And I do think, I said earlier, disclaimer, I'm an idealist and a romantic. So I hope that serves me well in this role. I think it will. But I really believe that we're closer together than further apart on many things. And I think the opportunity to sit down at a table just like this with the beautiful, flowers in the middle and find our common ground of what we believe in. And we might have different paths to get there, et cetera. And there's a lot of things, right, that prevent us, I think, from doing that. There's divisiveness. There's lots of real conflict and real issues. But I think, and I hope that our work is healing, that our work is collaborative, that our work is based in curiosity and hope, and that we can play a significant role in bringing people and partners to the table to investigate that. I don't think it'll be easy,
Right.
but I think it's important.
Right. I love that. That's beautiful.
Thanks.
And I'm glad that you reflected back on your point about being an idealist and a romantic, because at first in my head, I was like, those are not compatible, are they? But really, really, if you think about idealism has to come from a place of creativity that says this is possible.
Yeah.
I can see it happen in this way.
Yeah.
And I will use a romantic accents on that outlook. Where I'm going with this is, you know, when you and I spoke previously, you were talking about having this kind of a nerdy side of your love for philanthropy in the world.
Totally.
What are some of the things that you want to bring out these days about, you know, what drives your passion? What drives sort of your energy, your creativity, personal plate? Because you can go to work and you are working with incredible people. You're making incredible things happen in the community. And when you are not in the office, there's still a little bit of a nerdy muddy.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So we're going to transition to nerdy Marisa. I think, I guess it would start for me probably when I was a kid, right? And like I was a big reader, you know, I made my cousins play Pippi Longstocking. Like I was Pippi. We'd go on an adventure and it was just like.
She was at Comic-Con this weekend.
Oh, I love Pippi. Yeah, and she had a horse, which we can talk about later. And so I think that spirit of like curiosity, and I thought she was always super bold, right? And when I think about where that romanticism came from, I think it probably started there in adventure and those sorts of things. Yeah. And then, you know, fast forwarding, I think really to flamenco was this basic premise that our community deserves beautiful things, right? Like we deserve to have beautiful parks and beautiful landscaping and beautiful buildings and public art and, you know, and that idea that we deserve that inspiration and deeper investigation of ourselves as humans, human expression is like an inherent right. I just believe that so strongly. And so that really is where I think some of that romanticism really came in for me, was we all deserve this. And then that fuels the idealism of like, well, then how do we create that type of world?
You said it so much better than I could. I appreciate that. So what are you doing to do some self-reflection and investigating and keeping yourself creative?
So I mentioned horse. So 7 years ago, I decided it was time that I wanted to learn how to ride a horse. And it just was like, I think growing up in rural New Mexico, I was a 4-H kid, but I didn't ride horses. I played sports and something just, I don't know. And it's Year of the Horse. We know that, right? We've seen that all over social. So I was like, this is a very like synergistic year for me. So 7 years ago, I decided, I was like, you know, I just need this in my life, and didn't really understand why, but got involved in a lot of the horse community here. Eventually that led me to owning my first horse. His name is Hoot. And he's just
Hoot.
Yeah. Like
this horse is a hoot.
Yeah. He's a hoot. Yeah. That's his name. He's very cute. But he has taught me so much about being present, about trust, about communication, about slowing down, also about being clear and fair.
Yeah.
And so he really spawns like so much self-care for me, so much peace, adventure. We did a cattle sorting clinic this summer, and, you know, I've come a long way from my arts roots into like horse land, but there's some really important parallels there, I think, about creativity, about structure, about trust, communication, all of these things that serve me well as a leader.
My understanding is that relationships with horses are very intimate.
Yeah.
Like many other domesticated animals, maybe. And for you to take the time and the pleasure in being in relationship with this animal so that you both can learn together and grow together.
Yeah.
That's decades long worth of growth and understanding and love.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, you know, there's so many parallels, whether it's with other animals and humans and just even with yourself, right? Like, again, I think the things he's taught me so well are just being present. And he reminds me to slow down, to take a deep breath, they feel your energy. And so he knows when I'm like, coming off of a meeting or something that was really crazy. And he's just like, I'm here, you're here, we're here. Yeah, let that go.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'd love to meet him sometime.
Yeah, you come down to the barn. He's in the South Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
He's great.
And what are you getting in your extra time? If I don't know that there's extra time, I feel like a role that you have is always on.
Yeah.
Having familial roots in New Mexico, bringing it all sort of into play in your work. Are there things that you would recommend for other people that want to be more involved in their community and their family? You talked about connection at the institute, at the Flamenco Institute, the ability for the foundation to be a catalyst for change. If somebody else isn't involved in some of those other things, what is a perspective that might get them a little out of their comfort zone to do more?
I love that question. And I think over the last couple of weeks, I've had different one-on-ones with lots of different people. And just last week, I was meeting with a younger woman who'd recently moved back to New Mexico and was craving that community connection. And I think, outside of always engage with your local community foundation, and we can help connect you with organizations and wonderful groups, some at the foundation and many others that we know of. United Way of North Central New Mexico has wonderful giving circles. We are proud to partner with them. But the thing that I would say is don't ignore that feeling, right? Especially now where, sometimes with our phones, we can be in deep relationship with this device and just be on social media all the time. And I feel that craving myself, and I hear it out in the community of I just want to connect with my community and I don't know where to start. And I think the fundamental premise to answering that feeling in your stomach of I don't like this isolation, or this, maybe that's even sometimes it is isolation or loneliness or just lack of connection.
Yeah.
And so I think more than anything, hear that and honor it and be uncomfortable in it. And then there's lots of places to go do something about that, whether that's the Albuquerque Community Foundation and our giving circles like the Future Fund or the Pride Circle or Social Giving Club. United Way, of course, has Young Hispanic Philanthropic Society. What is it? Young Philanthropic? YPS, right? Young Philanthropic Society. They have Guys Who Give.
Women's group.
The women's group, right? And so I think there's so many opportunities to find that bigger connection.
And often in tandem with these giving groups is service events.
Yeah, service events.
Always in touch with our grantees.
And really getting involved, not just with monetary resources, but with time. And then you meet people who are like you and not like you.
Right.
And again, I think we need more of that, and just the connection of people who are rooted by the idea that we want to serve our community, and what does that look like? And so we're happy to play a small part in helping bring some of those groups together.
Well, and I think the ACF as a whole has played a much bigger part than many people understand it. And I want to highlight that. And I want to encourage people to go to the website to look for opportunities to either participate or learn more.
Absolutely.
You guys put on the best events. And you do co-partnered events. I know that you support Groundwork's annual conference, things like that. So there's ways to get involved, and I appreciate you lifting that up.
Absolutely. Yeah. We love to do that. And I think one of the most important things to me that I would talk about with our team is how do we want people to feel when they're at an ACF event? Right. And how do we have a diverse enough array of events so people can find their place there? Because different things resonate to different people, right? And I think we always want to try to have that welcoming environment, have some good food, have some fun libations, and investigate our community together. Yeah.
Well, and I, on a personal note, got involved more deeply through the Future Fund. Circle. And now I'm in the Pride Circle, which is your latest.
Yes. And actually, this year, we just launched, so the Future Fund is approaching 30 years old, which is incredible. And just shout out to the founders of the Future Fund for this vision of how to engage young people in philanthropy. And, I love the history of it, because a couple of years ago, we had our first Future Fund alumni, now board chair, right? And so we have more future funders on our board than we've had in so many years. And it's just really cool to see the leadership development through there, and have a long history of that. But some of the Future Fund alum founded the Future Fund, which is really focused on youth and like thinking about how to get youth and young children. I mean, we had, folks in like very young, like 5 to, middle school, a couple of high schoolers. So very good mix of age, but thinking about philanthropy and how we're starting to shape very young children's perspective of giving and their community. And so shout out to the Future Fund for, nurturing that next generation of philanthropy.
Yeah, more to come on that. I love that second round.
Yeah.
Future Fund.
Yeah.
So we're about to wrap up.
Okay.
Quickly. It went by fast.
It does. It flies by.
So I want to give you an opportunity to leave us with a message or an idea of anything that's on your mind. But also when I was, I guess, reviewing some information about Marisa, there was a poem that came across that you really loved, and ultimately it's called To Be of Use.
Yes.
Maybe you could tie in your interest in poetry, that topic, with where your mind is at to leave us on today.
Oh my gosh, I love that question. So To Be of Use is by Marge Piercy. And I love that poem so much. It makes me a little emotional. But the end line talks about, a person who yearns for work that is real. Mm-hmm. And that has been the guiding philosophy of my life, whether it was intentional or found myself exactly where I needed to be. Mm-hmm. And I think when I think about our team at the foundation and the wonderful people that, drive our work forward, to the curiosity and the collaboration that I hope to inspire and be part of in my tenure as president and CEO, to me, it's like rooted in that last sentence of like, we as humans yearn for work that is real and meaningful. And I would just add on to that, deeply hopeful.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you.
You leave me with a lot of hope. Thank you.
Well, same to you. Thanks for having me. It was fun. We could have talked for 4 hours.
I know. So it was scheduled next time, 45 minutes at least. Again, Marisa, thank you so much for your time and your leadership moving forward. I'm very excited to see more to come.
Yeah, thanks. I feel very blessed.
Yeah. And thank you to everybody else listening or watching. Come back for another ABQ Accent.
Yay.